Hey, hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing really well out there and the weather is nice and all that, and things are starting to feel a bit lighter and more easy, and I hope you really feel the same. We are just on the cusp of summer here in the UK, it feels so. Yeah, well, that's not what we're going to talk about today. I'm here to review a brand new album from no other than Suzanne Vega. She just released, actually a week ago from when I'm recording this one, her 10th studio album, Flying with Angels, and that's what I'm going to review here. My relationship with Suzanne Vega's music started in 1987 when she released the singles Tom Steiner and Luca. And that was, of course, her big breakthrough worldwide. They became really big singles for her. And at the time, I was listening to a lot of pop music, of course, but my focus was starting to shift more towards electronic music in the likes of Depeche Mode, industrial music even, with some Cabaret Voltaire, electronic body music with Front 242, Nitzareb, and all of that. So I was more focused on that, but like I said, I was listening to a lot of pop as well, of course. But Suzanne Vega, to be honest, she's not pure pop. It's not really pure rock either. She has her roots in the folk music, heavily influenced by Bob Dylan, for example, and the music of Lou Reed as well. And that was so far from the music that I was listening to at that point. But I'm, like so many others, like Tom Steiner and Luca as singles, very good singles. So I picked up the album. Sometimes we did that back in the 80s, and I actually continue doing that to this day. Just because I liked a couple of singles, and sometimes it turns out that the rest of the songs wasn't really for me. But in the case of Suzanne Vega, I can say for sure it was love at first listening. I loved the way she delivered the songs, the way she sang, but first and foremost, the storytelling. The story about people, places. I could really feel that I was there, where the things that she was singing about. I could feel some of the smells. I could feel the heat or the cold, whatever she was singing about. I was there. I could actually... There was so much for me to imagine through Suzanne Vega's music. So it was love at first listening for me. So yeah, a very unlikely artist for me at the time to fall in love with, but I did. And I started seeking out other records. I realized that this was her second album, and that in 1985 she released a self-titled album, Suzanne Vega. And that was equally brilliant, I thought. And from that point on, I just followed Suzanne Vega and bought all of the releases. I went to live shows with her. I've seen her a couple of times. And it's just been a wonderful love affair, really, of me and Suzanne Vega's music. I'm not one of those stans, fanatic ones that, I want to marry you. No, I'm talking about the music of Suzanne Vega. Love it. Yeah, so that leads us to what I'm here to do today, and that is to review Suzanne Vega's 10th studio album, Flying with Angels. And when it was announced that it was going to be released, I went to an official web store and pre-ordered the album. And I opted in for a pack with the vinyl version and the CD version as well. And I'm going to talk more about the design and how this one looks in general. And the same goes for this one as well. This is a deluxe CD, by the way, so that's why it looks a bit fun. But yeah, I'm going to talk more about that a bit later. But first of all, I want to go through the tracks. I won't dissect every single track here because I tend to do very long videos, and that would be even longer. And I'll leave it up to you guys if you're curious of listening to this album, or if you already listened to it. I want to leave it up to you to interpret these songs. Of course, I have my interpretations as well, but it would take too much time. But I will go into the first track, which is called Speaker's Corner. And this, like I said before, was the first track that we were treated to from this new album when it was still an upcoming album. And it's the most political charged lyric in a song from Suzanne Vega in a very, very long time. Can't really remember her being overtly political on any album, but that might just be down to my interpretation, like I just said. But this one, I think, is very straightforward. I read an interview just recently that she started writing the songs for this album during the pandemic, during the COVID era. And that influenced a lot of her writing, of course. And a lot of her writing was also influenced by the changes that just happened some years before the pandemic, when the Orange One came to be president in the United States. And that turned things upside down. Left was right, right was left. All of that, of course. There was... Ever since then, there seems to be really hostile... interactions between the two sides, and I'm talking about the political sides here. And it only got boosted during the pandemic years as well, with different opinions on what is right and what is wrong, and a lot of misinformation and all that. So that inspired her as well, probably to write Speaker's Corner. Going to talk more about my impressions of it just shortly, but I just want to mention or actually read some of the lyrics here, and it sums up what the song is all about. All those full of wind and air who howl and rant and rave, screaming out distorted facts about the souls they save, promising the miracles and pocketing the cash, pretending they have principles, preaching only ash. I think it's brilliant lyrics and set to a very, very catchy melody as well. But yeah, there are some political punches in this one, and she does have an opinion on what happened during those years. And even what is happening today, who knows? But yeah, hey, that's just my interpretation. You might listen to it and have a completely different opinion on this one. But yeah, that is basically what we get when it comes to political punches, really, from Suzanne Vega. It's very rare, like I said, that she does this, but I understand where she comes from. And yeah, that was Speaker's Corner. It starts off with a bang, this album, and I love it. Then we go into the second track, which is called Flying with Angels. That is, of course, the title track of this album. And it's one of those tracks that only Suzanne Vega could have made. Very typical Suzanne Vega song, very zen, very dreamy. This is why I fell in love with Suzanne Vega. Like I said, the storytelling, the ambience that she set with each and every song. This is a time to just dream away and fly with angels. Yes. Pun intended. Then we go into the third track, which is just called Witch. And we get fooled here a bit, because after that wonderful listen to Flying with Angels, this starts out a bit subdued as well, a bit mellow, but in just a short couple of seconds, it all kicks off into a very rocky track called Witch. And yeah, like I said before, I do have my interpretation of this lyric as well, but I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to interpret it yourself. And if you want to talk about it, please do so down in the comments. But this, to me, lyric-wise and melody-wise, it's one of the standout tracks from this album, at least at this point, a week into from when it was released. I love the track Witch. Then we go into the track Chambermaid, and this was the last song I believe she released just before the album came out. And when I heard it, I was like, this got a familiar melody to it. I heard this somewhere else. And then I started reading the comments online for this song, and they said, oh, this is a Bob Dylan one. And of course it is. So I went back, listened to it, and it's of course Bob Dylan's I Want You from 1966, 67. That was a terrible Bob Dylan impression. I won't do that again. From his Blonde on Blonde album, I believe it was. And on Bob Dylan, I just have to say, at some point years and years ago, a friend of mine said, well, if you're into Suzanne Vega, you must love Bob Dylan, right? I said, no, not really, because I gave him a chance. I listened to a couple of his albums at some point, and I do give it to him when it comes to lyrics and melodies. He is very gifted and talented, but I can't really cope with the voice. But it's not just probably me, but yeah, that's the thing. Suzanne Vega was my Bob Dylan in a way, so yeah, we'll just leave it there. But yeah, so of course, Bob Dylan being one of her great role models when it comes to music, Suzanne Vega wanted to do something to celebrate him and honor him, perhaps, with this chambermaid. So she borrowed parts of that melody from Chambermaid. That's why it sounds so familiar. And in I Want You by Bob Dylan, he sings at some point about a chambermaid. And Suzanne Vega, in the lyrics of her song, Chambermaid, makes it out of the perspective of the chambermaid. I made that so difficult, but yeah. So, so she reflects on Bob Dylan's character, I would say, yeah. But it's about the chambermaid and the way she lives and the way she perceives things and perceives this character that Bob Dylan was singing about in I Want You. Once again, I'm making too complicated, really. But yeah, it's a wonderful tribute to one of her big role models, Bob Dylan. And I love the track. I love the melody and the original recording, like I said. But with Suzanne's voice here instead, I prefer this one. But yeah, she does credit Bob Dylan here as well, of course, for the songwriting on this one. Yeah, okay. Then I was really, really taken aback by the next track because I sat there listening on my first listening. I was like, oh, this is so good. And then all of a sudden, a track came on that I could hear. It was Suzanne singing, just barely, but the music was so far removed from anything that she ever did on any of her other records. This is Love Thief, and I love it. But I was really taken aback. I didn't expect it. Of course, she has delivered from time to time some surprises on her albums, but I think this is the furthest that she actually diverted on any album. Love Thief, it sounds like a soul record from the mid-70s or something like that. It's got that tone to it, that lovely, lovely tone. And it's basically a pure love song set against this soulish musical background. And yeah, it's just a lovely, lovely song. It stands out like a sore thumb, of course, being that kind of music. And spoiler warning, the rest of the tracks are more in the vein of what we used to hear from Suzanne Vega. So it feels a bit misplaced. But that doesn't take away the fact that I love it. I love this song. And I think it makes more sense when you listen to the vinyl version of this one, because it's the last track on side A. So it's a bit of like, here you go. It's a bit of surprise for you. And after you gathered your thoughts after the song is finished and all that, you can flip the album over. So yeah. I don't know if it makes more sense, but yeah. Lovely, lovely track. Suzanne Vega goes soul. I love it. Really do. Then we have the next one. Is called Lucinda. Another great track. This is where Suzanne shows off a real strength in songwriting, at least in my opinion. And that is doing her storytelling about people, people that she observes, people she have read about. And I think Lucinda is, and I read this in the same interview that I mentioned before, is about Lucinda Williams, because she read an autobiography by about Lucinda Williams, at least. So yeah, but really good. I didn't know this when I was listening to it. So to me, it was just someone called Lucinda, and it's just this wonderful storytelling that makes Suzanne Vega so unique. Then we go into the next track here, which is a lovely touching track called Last Train from Mariupol. And Mariupol is, of course, a city in Ukraine, and we all know what happened a couple of years ago when Russia invaded Ukraine, and the horrors are still ongoing. So this was probably where Suzanne reflected on what was happening at that point, and still is happening, of course, but when she wrote it, just about, I don't think it really happened that way, but the song is all about all the people congregating on Mariupol train station to board the trains to flee. And at some point in the lyrics, she mentioned that I even saw God boarding a train. So even God has left Mariupol. A very heartbreaking and lovely song reflecting on the horrors that are still ongoing in Ukraine. And then we go into Alley, and I would say of all of the tracks on this album, and I listened to this one quite a lot throughout this week, Alley is a wonderful song, but it's the only one, I would say, that never really stuck to me. Not yet, at least. I think it's lovely, but it's one of those mid-record kind of things. And that happens with any artist, I would think, at least in my opinion. I can't remember an album where every single track was a banger, something that really tugged my heartstrings or really attached to me. There's always one or perhaps two tracks. I think Alley, in this case, like I said, it's not a bad one, but it's one of those that just became a background song for me until the next one came along and I was instantly hooked again. I'm talking about the song Rats. Yes, this is another one of those that we were treated to before the album was released. And it's just an adrenaline injection, really, from this record. I love this one. I did it for the first time I heard it. I thought, wow, she's really going back to that punk roots in the late 70s in New York with CBGBs and all of that. Yeah, she pulls it off really, really well here. All about how the rats are invading the city that is her city, New York City, of course. And during the pandemic, and I read this in an interview as well, the same as I mentioned before, that it was inspired by that time when the COVID breakout was at its peak, when the streets were deserted in New York City and the rats were taken over, basically. So, yeah. Really, really good. But you could also read in some other things around the rats. Then we come to the last song of this album, sadly, but it's a good one. This one is called Galway, and Galway is, of course, situated in Ireland, so it's all about an encounter with someone who is courting her in this one. And if I remember things right from that interview that I keep mentioning throughout this review, she said that this actually happened. It was an acquaintance of her that actually courted her, and in the song, she does it in a way that only Suzanne can do, the songwriting, in a very witty, a very funny way as well. You can really picture the place they're in and the way this guy speaks to her as well. And I have to quote something here from the lyrics again. After he courted her here in the first part of the song, she writes, "I laughed and I said, now you wait just a minute. There's somebody else I'm fighting with now. And I've seen my future and you aren't in it. But I'll let you know if I change somehow. Or if it changed somehow. So I think it's just the way she does her lyrics, the way she sings it. I just love it. The way she said, there's someone else I'm fighting with now. And then just being very blunt, I've seen the future and you're not in it. And I think Galway is a perfect example why I love Suzanne Vega's lyrics and songwriting in general. It's just that wordplay, because she also said in this interview that I keep coming back to, I'll soon mention where it's from, especially about Galway, that this is something that happened, but if I was to tell it just the way it happened, it wouldn't be really interesting word by word or word forward, because it would become journalism, I think she said, and she's absolutely right. So you have to venture into, I think she said, the absurd, and that's exactly what really lured me into her world of music in the first place, because she does tell great stories on her second album, all of her albums actually, but because I was introduced to her by the second album, I will use that as a reference. The way she talks about people, but all of a sudden you're about like, what is she talking about now? Oh, okay, so we're in a bit of a fantasy world, perhaps a dream world or something like that. And that goes even further, of course, on Days of Open Hand, which deals all about dreams and all that. So it's just that wordplay she's got, the way she puts the words. I love it, and especially that line that I just read. So yeah, perhaps it doesn't really make sense. I don't know how to express this, but hopefully you get the gist of it at least. And now to that interview that I keep coming back to in here, and that is an interview that I read in the excellent magazine from here in the UK called Classic Pop. I have a subscription for this one, and the interview is actually from this latest issue of it, where you can read a whole interview with Suzanne about this new album, and there's even a review in this one as well. Highly recommend for all of you who, like me, love 80s music and even 90s music. They delve into all of those artists, past and present, of course. So yeah, that's where I read some of those. So all quotes are thanks to Classic Pop here, my references, that is. So now let's have a look at the physical formats as well. So as I showed you before, I got this one on vinyl and a CD version as well. So let's start with the vinyl version. And I just have to say that I love this cover. That black and white photo of Suzanne is absolutely stunning. And I love the mixture there between the grey and the red text as well. It stands out really well, and it's a lovely photograph. And if we turn it over, another lovely black and white photograph there of Suzanne and the track listing, of course. And this is a single album, but they still made it into a gatefold. Love this one. Especially they just kept this part basically black. Except for that hype sticker. That's me who put it there. I don't like it to have it on the front, so I just placed it there. But yeah, I love the way they designed this. This is probably my favorite photo from this album. Would love to have this one on the wall. It would look really, really great. Yeah, so really, really nice design. And yeah, by the way, this hype sticker up here, it says limited edition, red smoke vinyl, gatefold sleeve, as we just saw. And I believe the red smoke vinyl was an exclusive for her web shop, where I pre-ordered this one from. But I also seen another one which was another smoke vinyl. I can't remember what, if it was purple smoke or something like that. And then there is a white vinyl as well. But yeah, this is the one I got. And talking about that, we can have a look at the vinyl itself. And see the smoky red. Hopefully it shows up there. You can see some black fragments in there. It's supposed to be the red smoke vinyl. And I also have to say that the pressing is okay. It I think the music comes through well, but it's not a pristine pressing or anything like that. At least my copy. It's not like it's skipping or anything like that, or it's overtly crackling noise. But I could hear some noise from the vinyl itself. I don't know exactly what it's called, but usually it's pretty quiet and you can hear the odd pop here and there because it's static, of course. But on this one, there, in some of the songs at least, and I don't think it's recording because it's not present on the CD, so I think it's an issue with the pressing itself. It's not like it's distracting you from listening to it. It still sounds good, but it's not an optimal pressing in my opinion. But still, okay. It's okay. And also, of course, I put all of my records, by the way, if you're wondering if I keep them well, in anti-static sleeves, always. I always clean them before I listen to them, even new records, and I take very well care of them, so it has nothing to do with that. But yeah, just want to show you if you're going to comment on that. It also comes with an inner sleeve as well, with another great photo there of Suzanne, with some credits, of course, for all the songs. And on the back of that one, we got the lyrics for all the songs. And we do really appreciate that for a Suzanne Vega album, of course. And the whole thing is produced and arranged by Gary Leonard. And he also plays guitars on all of the songs. A very gifted guitarist. I had the honor to see both Suzanne and Gary performing live a couple of years ago here in Reading, where I live, and was just a great concert. I've seen Suzanne before live with a full band, but this works as well as that, if not even better. I love that show with Gary and Suzanne. It was a great one. And Gary Leonard did a wonderful job of producing and playing on this record as usual. Yeah, and then we had the CD as well. You could, of course, buy this one in a normal, I believe it's a digipack, but because I pre-ordered this one and it was a pack, I got the deluxe one. And this is just like a book. We've seen these before with some other deluxe editions from other artists. And it's a very well put together book here. We have some pictures, some additional pictures, I would say, by Suzanne that's not on the vinyl edition. And then intermixed with lyrics, of course, from this album. And you also get some really nice handwritten notes and so forth and so on. Yeah, it's just a lovely thing. A little small book that you can go through while you're listening to this album and just enjoy the photos or sing along with the lyrics. It's poetry, basically. Yeah, just have a look at this one as well. Poetry and eye candy for anyone who appreciates good photography. Love this one. Really well put together. And this one also comes with a bonus disc, a second CD. I'm not really sure because it's, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks, demos from this album. And I'm sure they could have fitted that in on the first CD, but hey, selling it as a deluxe edition, you would like to give people 2 discs. It sounds better, right? But yeah. So yeah, no, I'm nitpicking at this point. We do get a second disc, like I said here, with some demos. You get Flying with Angels, that lovely title track, Speaker's Corner, Witch, Galway, Lucinda, and Rats. And it's very interesting to hear these in its demo form. But I always find it very interesting to hear what did this track sound like in the early stages. And there are, of course, also some differences in the way she delivers some of the lyrics and so forth and so on. Yeah. But a great deluxe CD set. And also because I ordered this one from her official shop, they said you also get a signed photo of Suzanne Vega. And it is signed. And I do believe it's actually signed, because in some cases they have these stamps with their autographs on, so they can just stamp thousands of photos, but this one actually looks like it's been written by a silver pen there, because if you look at it, you can see there are some differences and in the way it's smeared and all of that. Anyhow, yeah, it's a nice one, and I love that photo as well. It's also from the same sessions, but we do get a color photo in this case, not a black and white one. But yeah, overall, what can I say? You already know that I love this one. It was a given. It's Suzanne Vega, one of my favorite artists of all time. So, hey. Flying with Angels, top-notch stuff. If you're curious and you haven't really heard much from Suzanne Vega before, go out to some streaming services and have a listen. I'm sure there's something that's going to tickle your fancy with this new album, Flying with Angels. That's it from me and this review of Suzanne Vega's album Flying with Angels. Now it's up to you who are watching this. Have you listened to this album? And if so, what are some of your favorite tracks? What are your thoughts around this album? And or are you a Suzanne Vega fan since before, or are you just a newcomer to this? I want to hear all about it, your favorite albums, all things Suzanne Vega, down in the comments, of course. Please let me know. I would love to hear some of your stories and thoughts around this. But yeah, I'll be back soon, sooner than you think actually, because tomorrow, when I'm recording this, I'm expecting yet another new album. And I might do an unboxing and a small review of that one as well. So 2 review videos from me in a very short span of time. Very rare. So keep your eye out for that one. But until then, you all take care of yourself. And as usual, a very heartfelt adieu.